Hi folks, Travis Fox here with FoxOptic.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of new thermals. I've got ATN Thor HD 50mm 2.5 to 25 unit here. Also tested their new remote in combination with that device. And then here I've got Pulsar's new trail unit. The trail unit that I used for test comparison in this particular case was their XP38 model. To be honest with you, I would have liked to test the XP50 directly just because this was a 50mm lens, but at the time I started the test, the XP38 was all that was available, and as I got into the test it became pretty apparent that the XP38 was going to hold its own against their 50mm anyway, so I just went ahead and completed the test using these two units. We'll get into that here just a little bit. This is the remote control unit for the trail. One thing I will touch on real quick, I definitely liked the trail remote a little better. It seems to be built a little better. I had no issues with it losing its connection. I did have some issue with the Bluetooth connection being lost on the ATN. Other than that, just the feel of the scroll wheel. The Pulsar unit appears to be built a little better. But anyways, I've got about 3 pages of notes here. I'm going to go through real quick on the features of what I found between them. I'll just tell you before we get into the video very far, I'm a pretty big fan of the trail unit. The Pulsar did a really good job on the trail. But if you want to give me just a second, I'll be going through some videos or video footage and some pictures to kind of keep you up with what we're going through, and essentially I'm just going to read my review off to you. Stick around. Okay, on the two units I'm going to start with the overall build quality. I felt that the Pulsar, the build of the Pulsar was very refined. The layout was much more deliberate. It appears to be a little bit better thought out as far as the quick moding buttons. All the important features on the site were quick and easy to get at. The ATN does a really good job in the sense of that as well. I just found the quick operation buttons on the Pulsar to be a little faster and handier than the menu options that you use inside the ATN. I did find that I like the left-right arrows to start-stop video, having individual toggles on the ATN a little better than the Pulsar. Where you've actually got to switch between video and pictures, but I found the button push to be a really quick feature in the way that it's all laid out there. With the exception of that video, I found the button layout on the Pulsar to be much easier to use. As far as mounting was concerned, hands down on that one, I'm going to give it to the Pulsar. The eye relief was much more generous on the Pulsar. The recoil rating is much higher on the Pulsar. The lower portion of the Pulsar has 4 hole slots in it. You can slide the mount adjustment. It gives you about almost 2 inches of actual mounting adjustment in the base. The ATN has a fixed position mount. There are some different mount options, but I found this one to be one of the better ones. But aside from moving the rail itself, you're somewhat limited on the change you can make. Plus I found the stability and the integral mount system on the Pulsar to be a little more secure. I think that it adapts and holds the weight better and distributes it more evenly. Again, we'll touch on the rear ocular on the Pulsar. Hands down, that was a big one. The rear ocular on the Pulsar, getting in behind that display screen is much easier. It just feels like it lays up naturally when you've got it on a gun. The ATN, it feels like you're kind of always crowding in behind the screen to get in and see the full display. Plus the eye relief is a little shorter. I find myself a lot of time on the ATN squishing the cup in quite a ways trying to get in to be able to see that screen, whereas the Pulsar felt like I just gently laid it against the eyepiece to get a really good fit on the back. I would definitely, for higher caliber shooters, you know, hands down there, I would go with the Pulsar. I'm not really knocking the ATN. You know, sub 308 semi-automatic, 223, which is where a lot of them are going. The thing is a really slick setup, but it's definitely behind the Pulsar when it comes to the larger calibers. Sensor sensitivity. I did a lot of tests. I spent a lot of time looking at targets with different thermal loading as the thermal loading went away. Looking for heat dissipation. Again, in that particular category, the Pulsar, in my opinion, far out exceeded it. Though a lot of times on 1-inch bullseye targets with outer rings, that as the heat dissipation occurred, I could continue to see the rings and the 1-inch bullseye inside of the target much longer than I could in the ATN. But there were some situations where all I could see was the round target, even in the 50 millimeter ATN at 50 yards, and I could get pretty good in-depth clarity to the target. I think I can't really put my finger on the reasoning for that, other than my assumption would be is Pulsar is running a little better sensor, or they're running a better algorithm for their software. I don't honestly know the answer. I know that Pulsar states theirs as being a 17 micron sensor. I just know it does a better job. Okay, when it came to accuracy, both units did exceptionally well. Both very capable units. As long as you have thermal targets, pretty good thermal targets, or know what you're doing setting up there, both of them pretty easy to deal with. Both of them shot exceptionally well. Will tell you there's a few differences there. ATN has the ballistic calculator currently operating in their unit. The Pulsar Trail has that as a future firmware update coming out, but it's not out at this moment in time. So for some of you subsonic guys, that could be a consideration. Although I will tell you, the Pulsar unit, it has one thing that I did like in it. You're only allowed to set 3 gun profiles in the Pulsar unit, but you're allowed to set 10 aiming points, and they have a pretty quick menu function in there that allows you to shift between those aiming points. And to be quite honest with you, I almost prefer that over the ballistic calculator and the entry. I definitely like the stadiometric rangefinder that is built in the Pulsar unit, better than the 2-position rangefinding unit that is in the ATN. I found the Pulsar one to be faster. But as far as overall accuracy performance is concerned, I would say that it was a tie. Zoom. ATN advertises smooth zoom in their unit. The Pulsar Trail unit has that as well. You have to go into the primary sub-menu, and you can actually smooth zoom the unit. But they also allow the shift with the single button depress to bump between 4 preset magnification settings. I found that in combination with the PIP function. The PIP function in the Trail is slick, and that's a feature that you're going to find in most all the Pulsar units, and that is really slick. It allows you to combine up a really wide field of view with precise aiming magnification and tailor it out exactly the way that you want to use it. Makes it really quick on second shots, or just getting on target and being able to place a really precise shot at the same time. ATN has tried to come with a feature similar to that in the remote. It now has a home button on the remote that allows you to go from minimum to maximum magnification. There's a tiny bit of lag between the bumps. It's a good attempt. It definitely brings something in there to make, to give the ATN a similar feature to try to address that, but it's just no comparison to the PIP. Next is the remotes. I think I started off with that. Hands down there, I was a bigger fan of the Pulsar remote. Focus adjustments, very good in both units. Initially, I liked the ATN, the bigger adjustment on the ATN. It seems a little bit more solid and precise. The Pulsar feels really smooth, but it feels like it's got some looseness in spots. But I will tell you this, Both of them focused very precisely, and in my shot tests, the Pulsar, it gave me no issues at all. Always maintained a really clear sight picture after every single shot, and held really precisely. I had some issue with the ATN losing its focus after a couple of shots, so I don't know if that was a defect issue in the particular sight. I've sold a lot of ATN products. I don't think that's something that's, it's not something that I get any complaint about or have heard a lot about, but I did definitely notice it in the test unit. Battery options, the Pulsar has got that figured out. They've went to a really nice little onboard battery. It is a really slick setup. It locks in there. It makes the device fully waterproof. They've got an external option similar to the ATN as well, so you can plug in the external. One really slick characteristic on the Pulsar is if you're running external in combination with the onboard battery being in its place, the external will power the device as it charges the onboard battery on the scope. So you can actually be operating the scope and charging your onboard simultaneously. That's potentially a really slick feature for guys running the external brick pack, where you may not, it may add a little extra weight. You don't want to run it all the time, but occasionally when you're doing sets or stands and you're shooting off a tripod, it's not a big deal. You could be using it and charging your onboard battery simultaneously. Battery life, the tested battery life I've got out of the one on the Pulsar Trail, about 7 to 8 hours on per battery, and I'm running the short battery. They're going to offer later on. They're going to offer an extension battery, AA and CR123 clip-on packs. The ATN, I typically run either an external or I run the Kent Lee internal rechargeables. I'm getting about 6.5 to 8 hours runtime on 4 Kent Lee AA internal rechargeables. So power options are good on both devices. I don't know that there's a clear winner there, other than the fact that the onboard battery on the Pulsar, it's hands down, it's a winner. I mean, that's a really slick feature. The aluminum frame on the ATN versus the composite framing on the Pulsar, that's one of the things that I've seen in the advertising for the units is bashing the plastic versus aluminum. To look at the unit, the Pulsar unit, as well thought out as the unit is, and looking at like the way that all the metal fasteners are grommeted down into or molded down into the housing body, I've got no reason to believe that the composite material isn't just as durable as the metal. And to be quite honest with you, the recoil rating is a little higher on the Pulsar. So for that reason, if anything, if I had a suspicion, I would say that it's potentially more durable, but I really can't tell. Time will tell that. The Pulsar unit is fully waterproof. The ATN unit at this point in time is considered water resistant. I don't think that needs a lot of explanation as to which one I would choose in that particular scenario. Again, not really bashing one over the other. There are some clear reasons why certain people might like different features. One of the video features I will tell you on the ATN that I really enjoy is the HDMI output port. When you're operating from the apps to a smart device and using that as your screen, it's really meant for a secondary person that's hunting with you to be able to see what you're doing inside the scope. But there are potentially some applications where a guy might want to multitask those devices a little bit, using it on a boat or for some night vision or something like that, where I could see a big benefit to the real-time video output of the HDMI port on the ATN. Other than that, I think that if anybody wants my honest opinion, for the hunter, the Pulsar is the way to go, in my opinion.